So we have Robert, correct? Robert McMullen?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Jackie Miller?
Yep, I'm here.
Glenn Roberts?
Here.
Karen McCandless?
I'm here.
You're on, Vern.
Welcome, pardon a few minutes late. Welcome to the Utah County Planning Commission meeting for April 21st. We're meeting in a little bit different circumstances here tonight. We have 3 planning commissioners present, and I believe we have 4 on the phone, 3 or 4 on the phone. So we do have a quorum. We will be broadcasting, are we broadcasting through YouTube? Through YouTube channel as designated in the agenda and the notice. And so with that, we are calling the meeting to order, recognizing that Chair McCandless, Karen McCandless, is participating from her home. And as vice chair, I've been asked to fill that role as chair tonight at the meeting. Thank you, Karen, for that opportunity. With that, we're going to ask Blaine to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll move to the minutes. Blaine?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic and to the republic, one nation,
Which stands one nation,
under God, justice for all.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Blaine, for the Pledge of Allegiance and all those that participated. Our next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. These minutes are from our February 18th meeting. We did not meet in the month of March due to the COVID-19 situation. And those items, if there were any, are moved to the April meeting, which is tonight. So has everybody had a chance to review the minutes, and does anybody have any changes to the minutes?
This is Jackie. I've reviewed them and have no questions or changes.
Thank you. There is a little bit of delay, so I will be pausing to make sure that there's an opportunity for those that wish to speak, both from the public and from the planning commission at the appropriate times. If there are no changes or comments, we would like to entertain a motion for adoption.
I'll make the motion that we adopt the minutes.
We have a motion to adopt. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So Blaine has moved to adopt the minutes as is, and Karen has seconded that motion. We're going to have to do a roll call vote tonight just to make sure that we have everybody. So I'm going to hopefully read off the names. If I skip a planning commissioner, will you please let me know? Blaine?
Aye.
Karen?
Which one?
You. Sorry.
Aye.
Robert McMullen?
Aye.
Karen McCandless?
Aye.
Jackie Miller?
Aye.
Am I missing someone? Stan Roberts?
Glenn
Glenn Roberts?
Aye.
Glenn?
Aye. Aye.
And Vern, I'm also an aye, so it appears to be unanimous. Thank you. Now we move to our agenda, Land Use Ordinance Text Amendment. This first application is from the Utah County Commission, and the proposed Utah County Land Use Ordinance Text Amendment to Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 and any other applicable chapter related to the continued permitting as a conditional use of a large-scale development types, including eliminating planned unit developments as a permitted conditional use in the transitional residential TR5 and rural residential RR5 zones. And I believe presenting tonight on behalf of staff is our Community Development Director, Bryce Armstrong. Is that correct?
Yeah, sorry, we're going to do one item of business relative to the setup here. Apparently, Jackie Miller's phone, we're getting a lot of feedback. And so if she can maybe mute the phone until she is ready to comment, that might help. Jackie.
Okay. Commissioner Miller, did you receive that wording?
Yeah, it was on mute. Let me check it again. Okay, I'll put it on mute one more time. Let's see if it takes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll do my presentation from the podium today to kind of facilitate our setup. As Mr. Kiesler stated, this is a request for a land use ordinance text amendment to chapters 5 and 6, specifically related to large-scale development types that are allowed in the TR5 and RR5 zones of Utah County, with a specific emphasis on looking at which types should be continued, including our planned unit development type potentially being eliminated in these zones. This was referred to the Planning Commission by the County Commission in February 2020, February 12th, 2020, and so is before you tonight for a recommendation back to the County Commission as stated. To give you a little background on this, and we'll bring up a map here in a second showing you the TR5 and RR5 zones of the county. These zones generally have a base density of 1 house per 5 acres, similar to our residential agricultural zone. The difference in these two zones, TR5 and RR5, is that under certain conditions, mainly the provision of water and potentially sewer for planned unit developments, subdivisions and planned unit developments can have a much higher density, a lower lot size than our general 1 house per 5 acres. And so that's currently allowed. The two types of developments that are in these zones are, number one, the planned subdivisions. Again, if you have a water system in the TR5 or RR5 zone, a planned subdivision can have a minimum lot size down to 20,000 square feet, so just under half an acre. A planned unit development, if it has a water system and a central sewer system that's been approved by the state and county. Sorry, I'll pause for a second. Do we have a... Okay. That can have it's a little bit trickier way to determine, but it can have a density of 2 units per acre with a bonus density of up to 3 units per acre, provided it meets certain incentives. One of the big differences between the two types of developments is there are a number of different types of housing types that are allowed in the PUD, including townhomes and condominium type attached dwellings. Very, very different from what we normally see in the county, but nonetheless that does exist. And so the request then is to take a look at the appropriateness of that type of development in our RR5 and TR5 zones. Let me give you a little bit of background on the TR5 and RR5 zones. There's a bunch of this in your staff report, so I won't cover all of it, but I will answer any questions later. Our TR5 zones it's our transitional residential zone that maybe we'll put up the map right now and kind of show you where they're at in the county. Generally, they're adjacent to existing city limits. The origination of the TR5 zone was to serve as areas that would be anticipated to be annexed. This was prior to, and we'll zoom in a little more here on this map, but these areas were designated prior to our current annexee policy declaration mandate from the state, which identifies these areas to be annexed. In the late 70s, the county created this zone to show these areas that the various cities in the county would anticipate annexing. The RR5 zone Also, there are areas that traditionally had areas of higher densities due to an existence of historical water systems. Think of maybe Spring Lake or Alberta. Also, some of the areas up in the Cedar Hills area, there was area referred to as Manila, had some water systems up there. Let me give you so the map you're looking at now is it's kind of hard, it's countywide. All the red circles show either the TR5 or RR5 zoning designation. So you can see they're kind of scattered throughout the county. There is most of them are along the I-15 corridor. There is one area that is west out in the Alberta area where they have a water system. Let me grab my notes here and I'll give you an idea of how large of area we're talking about in the county. So currently, I guess as of February, in the RR5 zone, there are 328 parcels comprising approximately 1,100 acres. In the TR5 zone, there are approximately 458 acres comprising about 1,113 acres. Go ahead to the next slide. Thanks. So we'll just kind of look from the south end of the county. You can see some of these areas that are circled in between Payson and Santaquin. You can see the area of Spring Lake. Then there's these other pockets, the orange that are circled are TR5 around the city limits of Woodland Hills and Payson and Elk Ridge. And then up closer to Spanish Fork, there's several pockets of RR5 and TR5 there. If you recall, last year we went through a process of the Spanish Fork area to see the appropriateness of the RR5 zone. There was much more of that then, and it was moved on by the County Commission to rezone most of that to RA5. They did allow those that wish to remain in the RR5 to remain RR5, and so that's why you see some of that scattered checkerboard there south of Spanish Fork City. And then there's also a little pocket there up Spanish Fork Canyon. Okay, we'll go to the next. This is kind of more of the central core area of the county. Again, you can see several pockets of TR5 zoning north along Provo Canyon Road in the Provo area, and then out along Geneva Road in Orem. Much of this has been annexed over the years, but there are still a few remnant pockets left. And then we'll go a little further to the north, next slide. And then it's a lot more scattered here. These are some pockets that are remnant from, that have not been annexed in the northern sections of the county. As you can see, there's most of them are the TR5 zoning. In fact, I think that was part of our exercise in looking at the RR5 zone a year ago, and the RR5 pockets in this area were rezoned to the TR5. So in kind of summary, I guess, the TR5 zone was originally anticipated to be areas that would be annexed in the future. And then it's just remained as a remnant zone. Those areas now are defined by a city's annexation policy declaration. The RR5 zone were areas that were historically had higher densities due to maybe some existence of a historical water system. The other significant purpose of the TR5 and RR5 zone is they also have some limits on the size of structures and the number of animals, respecting the potential higher densities and also the potential of them being incorporated into or annexed into cities, and making sure that there's some compatibility there with those potential uses with the city's zoning at that time. I'm getting a little long-winded here, so I'll try and just kind of wrap this up. The county's general plan really has, for a number of years, decades, has really emphasized having residential development, higher density development, prioritized to be located in the cities first. The county does not provide water or sewer, and so the areas that do have that provision are usually provided by private water companies. And so as a way to kind of limit the amount of essential services that are needed, municipal type services out in the county. The county has followed these general land use policies of promoting residential growth into the cities. The challenge arises when we do have these areas that potentially could allow for a higher density, and then in the event that there is a development that utilizes this density, then the incentive for them to be annexed, which is one of the purposes of each of these zones, diminishes. We've found that, let me back up for a second. All that being said, there have been very few types of these developments in the last 30 to 40 years. We recently had a TR5 subdivision in the Alpine area that had a number of lots, 40 or 50 lots. That was the first one we had in 20 years or so. And that really was due to the fact that under a unique circumstance where the city was providing water, which generally doesn't happen or we kind of hope to avoid. As far as the planned unit developments, we have had one in the last 20 years, and that is down in the Spring Lake area. It was 6 lots. They had a ability to connect to the Spring Lake water system. Prior to that, there were several PUDs that were approved while in the county as a way of a path to incorporation for Saratoga Springs. I think that was one of the original intents. We've since created a new zoning, the planned community zone, that serves that purpose, and PUDs would still remain in that zone. So with all that being said, I think staff kind of looked at this as really consistency with the county's general plan and the priority of promoting development through the incorporation or annexation into cities, and would recommend that at a minimum the planned unit developments be eliminated as a conditional use in the TR5 and RR5 zones. A lot of information. I've got a lot of more detail I can give you, but I'll just kind of maybe take some questions. Or
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Planning commissioners, do we have any questions for Mr. Armstrong at this point? Hearing none, this is a public hearing, and so I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Commissioner Ellingson moved that we open the public hearing. Do we have a second? Mr. Thatcher has seconded that motion. So we're going to go down through a roll call again. We'll start off with Commissioner Ellingson,
Yes.
Commissioner Thatcher,
Aye.
Commissioner McMullen,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes?
Commissioner McCandless,
Aye.
and Commissioner Roberts.
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So the public hearing is open. The first thing I'm going to do is open it to any of those that are in the audience that are present to come up and speak. Are there any present who wishes to speak to this item? Okay, so we have no one present who would like to voice opinion on this particular topic in person. Now we're going to see if anybody has called in. Now, do we have a call-in number that we can state? Is it on the agenda? Okay, so on the Planning Commission agenda, there is a dedicated phone number, and let me just read that phone number to you. It is 385-323-8760. Now I'm going to repeat that one more time. 385-323-8760. If the public would like to call in and speak to this item in regards to planned unit developments in the TR5 and RR5 zones, please call in so that we may hear you. We'll wait a couple minutes. We're not going to be efficient tonight, but we will be thorough.
We have two already?
It sounds like we have a couple callers already. Could I get the last four digits of those phone numbers so I can take those in order?
I don't know if they want to comment, they're just
Oh.
on the line.
Okay, okay. I noticed that we do have a couple of people online. Are you wishing to comment on this particular topic? On this item? If so, please call in. Again, the number is 385-323-8760.
We have a prize for calling number 10.
Peter, have we had anybody call in?
Hello?
Hi, caller, please state your name and city of residence for us.
Hi, my name is Kay Nelson. I live in Provo, Utah.
Thank you. Please proceed.
I'm just calling to lend my support to these changes. I think I've talked to several people, and I think that it's time for these changes to come forth in the county. I think aligning the zoning with the city is a good idea, and taking these PUDs out as possibilities to prevent high-density developments in these areas is a fabulous idea. We need to protect our open spaces and green spaces and foothills and other areas, and this is a good step in the right direction.
Thank you. We appreciate your comment on this item. Are there others who have called in that would also like to speak to this item? Okay, at this point, I think what we'll do is bring it back to the Planning Commission for any discussion, comments, or questions that you may have. I'm probably going to do this in a little bit more organized fashion than we normally would. So I'm going to start to my left and those that are present. So Commissioner Thatcher, did you have any comments, questions, or concerns?
No, I think this makes sense to me. As I understand it, we're just eliminating the PUD element as a conditional use from both the RR5 and the TR5 zones, but allowing the large-scale developments, if I'm understanding correctly, right? And so, yeah, I don't really have any other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. Commissioner Ellingson?
I appreciated the letter from the Spanish Fork mayor. I think that was really important for him or other cities who have this sort of zoning nearby them to weigh in on it. And I agree with the previous comments that it's good for us to be keeping in mind how we're impacting the cities and transitioning to them. So I think it's a good move.
Thank you. Commissioner McMullen, anything to add?
No, I think it's been said. I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller? Commissioner Jackie Miller, you might be on mute. Do you have anything to add or any comments or questions?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. I'm having a hard time with my mute button, guys. Sorry about that. I'm also in support. Thank you.
Commissioner McCandless?
I'm also in support as well. I think it's a good move to remove that.
Thank you. Commissioner Roberts?
No questions or comments.
Thank you. I will say that I think it's been longstanding county policy that PUDs or higher density developments for municipal type that require water, sewer systems, and those other municipal type services get developed within the municipalities. The county's not in the business to run water and sewer facilities, and so I agree with the proposal as well. At this point in time, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes, Mr.
comment on one
Armstrong.
thing? Just as a point of clarification, Mr. Thatcher's comment was correct. This proposal is to just eliminate PUDs in the RR5 and TR5 zone. The term large-scale development refers to a bunch of different types of developments, including PUDs. The type of development that will still be allowed in these two zones would be a planned subdivision, which we have to have in all zones to give the people the ability to divide their land. And the proposal will retain that as it currently exists, meaning a person, if they have a water system, can still have lot sizes down to half acre, basically, so.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong, for that clarification. Are there any follow-up questions based upon that clarification?
Would that be as a conditional use or as not a conditional use?
Yeah, it's presently a conditional use, and it would continue as a conditional use,
Yeah.
which is probably appropriate for those type of uses in the county.
Thank you again. Additional discussion or a possible motion from the Planning Commission?
I can make a motion if we're ready.
Please.
Okay. I move that we recommend approval to the Utah County Commission of the proposed Utah County Land Use Ordinance text amendment to sections 5-3-C, 5-4-C, and 6-1-C-2 related to eliminating planned unit developments as a permitted conditional use in the rural residential RR5 and transitional residential TR5 zones based on the minimum findings in the report.
Okay, and I believe there were 4 findings, is that correct?
Do we need to read those in as well?
I don't think just refer to the 4 findings. Thank you, Commissioner Ellingson, sorry. Is there a second motion? Second to the motion. Your guess is as good as mine. Was that Commissioner McCandless? Miller, thank you. Commissioner Miller is the second, and so we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on this motion. Commissioner Thatcher.
Aye.
Commissioner Ellingson.
Aye.
Commissioner McMullen.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner McCandless.
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts.
Aye.
And Vern Kiesler is also an aye. Motion passes. Recommendation passes.
Sorry, I'm gonna jump in one more time. That's a good point. This is strictly a recommendation to the county commission. I know there has been some interest expressed in this item. This will be forwarded to the next county commission work session agenda that's available, and according to my dates, would be May 13th. I would recommend anyone who is interested in this to, the county commission agenda is posted on the county website weekly, or you can contact our office or the commission office to get that exact date. But it would be anticipated to be May 13th, that it would be heard at the county commission as a work session item.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong, for that additional information. Let's proceed to item number 2. This also is a Utah County Planning Commission, this is Utah County Planning Commission application. This is a proposed Utah County Land Use Ordinance text amendment to Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 7, and any other applicable section related to requirements for grading, fill, and associated excavation activities in the unincorporated areas of Utah County. This item has been continued from the February 18th, 2020 meeting, and Mr. Armstrong will be representing staff to introduce this item.
Bryce Armstrong, staff. I'm kind of leaning into the microphone because I heard you need to do that to get picked up on YouTube, so I'm not trying to eat the microphone. Again, this was staff initiated. It was brought as an agenda item in February as a follow-up to an amendment to the Utah County Code by the county engineer to adopt let me get my glasses on here, a Chapter 32 stormwater regulations related to a number of different types of earth excavation, grading, fill type of activities that the county is mandated to have in place. And so as part of that process, the county engineer adopted a new type of permit that's referred to as a land disturbance permit that is anticipated to take the place, in most instances, of our existing grading permit that we had reference to in the land use ordinance. So really, this is kind of a follow-up to harmonize the Utah County Land Use Ordinance with this newly adopted stormwater ordinance. It wasn't completely through the process in February, so that's why we continued it, and so it's brought to you tonight. We'll bring up the actual red line copy. I know you have a staff report, but we'll also bring it up here on the YouTube so you can see that, and we'll walk through it real quick. Is it up? Okay. So the first part is related to section 2-2, which is our definition section of the land use ordinance. Under our existing definition of fill, we are referencing a Utah County land use disturbance permit rather than the grading permit, just because that's in most cases is going to take the place of that. There may be a situation where the building permit still addresses on-site grading as part of the construction project, and so there will be some references to any other applicable permit in these proposals, and that's the situation that's generally referring to. Under grading, we have an existing definition. Again, we're just referencing where appropriate that in most cases that is subject to a land disturbance permit. If you go on, hey Greg, can I have you? Sorry, we're gonna scroll down on our screen here. Just scroll to the next page. Okay, then we've also added a definition 88, a land disturbance permit that just references to the permit issued by the county engineer that is subject to the adopted regulations in the Utah County Code. Then we are also amending section 7-2, which is just clarifying the powers and duties of the zoning administrator and referencing a land use permit rather than a grading permit to capture all the types of permits that the zoning administrator may be involved with. 7-4, again, just referencing the new land disturbance permit process. The reference to other applicable entity could refer to the county engineer, or if there's a city involved with their stormwater permit, it would refer to them. So that's what that reference is. I think that captures the changes. So again, this is just to harmonize this with our new stormwater regulations, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Let's see if the Planning Commission has any questions for you. Let's start with those that are present.
Bryce, I'm assuming that the new permit referenced in, what was it, section 32, doesn't really change the requirements for the permit that we're sort of replacing here, the grading and fill permits?
It's probably a question for the county engineer. I would imagine they're going to be somewhat similar, but there may be some enhanced regulations. This is a federal mandate to have these regulations in place. A lot of times, the county doesn't have a lot of curb and gutter, and so the management of stormwater is a little bit different animal in the county, but there are still some minimum requirements. And I believe that the county engineer, when they were issuing grading permits, we're following those best practices, and now it's more memorialized as a regulation.
Because it looks just like kind of a housekeeping
Yeah,
reference, and I would assume that's the case.
generally, that's the case. Yeah, it really refers to a SWIP. You hear a SWIP permit, you see those signs up a lot of times, and so that's,
See them all over the place.
or just making sure that it's consistent with those regulations.
Yeah, you see the swap signs, SWAPP, right?
Yep.
Commissioner Ellingson, any
No, my
comments?
questions are along similar lines, so I'm good.
Thank you. Let's go to Commissioner McMullen. Did you have any questions for Mr. Armstrong?
Bryce, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but just wondering, years ago we did a lot of land leveling in agriculture. We don't do as much of it now since we've gone more to sprinkling rather than irrigation. What is there? I don't, years ago I never remember ever getting a permit for doing something like this. Is there anything that will prohibit agriculture from doing what it's done in the past?
That question is going to be best answered by the county engineer. I would guess that there are some exemptions built in for agricultural uses, and I would imagine those would continue. That would be independent of this action tonight. That's, if they do exist, they're going to be in those stormwater regulations. I don't think we have Mr. Nielsen or Mr. Tanner online tonight, but that is something that we can circle back and touch base with the county engineer. And I can follow that up with you individually.
Peggy?
Okay, that'd be
Sorry,
great.
I may have been overruled, so.
Hang on just a minute, Commissioner McMullen. Peggy?
Peggy Kelsey from staff. The stormwater permits are triggered by anything greater than 1 acre in land. And so if it's less than that, they probably would not be getting anything. But over that, I think even if it is grading, it kind of depends, I think, how much they're actually doing. But we would always refer them to Public Works for that.
Well, I think Mr. McMullen brings up a very good point. It wasn't uncommon to see back in the day when they were irrigating by ditch, to see these land levelers come in and smooth out the fields of the crops 20, 40 acres at a time. That's certainly larger than the 1 acre minimum requirement. I wish that we had an answer to Commissioner McMullen's question because I think it is extremely valid for agriculture. Thank you, staff. Commissioner Miller.
No questions or concerns.
Commissioner McCandless.
I don't have any questions or concerns.
Commissioner Roberts.
No comment.
Okay, seeing no additional questions or comments from the Planning Commission, the public hearing is still open, and this is a public hearing for this text amendment. So at this point in time, we'll see if anybody is present that would like to speak to this particular item, and then we will move to the phone lines. No one's present to speak on this particular item, so I'm going to give the phone number again each time. 385-323-8760. If the public would like to speak to this particular item, and this is a text amendment, cleaning up some requirements for grading, fill, and associated excavation in chapters 2, 3, and 7, and other applicable chapters as well. So with that, if anybody would like to speak, please call in, and we're happy to take your comments. So far, we don't have anybody, but we will wait. It will be an awkward pause of about 30 seconds to see if anybody calls in, but we do welcome your comments and your input. Peter, have anybody called in yet? Okay. Okay, I guess we're boring. So let's bring it back to the Planning Commission. If we happen to get a caller in, that's great, but let's bring it back to the Planning Commission for any further discussion or a motion.
There's no further discussion. I'll make the motion that the Utah County Planning Commission recommend to the Utah County Commission approval of the proposed Utah County Land Use Ordinance text amendment to Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 7, and any other applicable section relating to requirements for grading, fill, and associated excavation activities in unincorporated areas of Utah County. And would in reference the staff findings.
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
This is Karen McCandless. I'll second the motion.
Karen or the other.
I got both Karens willing to second this. We'll go with the first one.
The one present.
Commissioner Ellingson seconded the motion first. Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner McCandless, for your willingness to support the motion as well. We will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Thatcher.
Aye.
Commissioner Ellingson.
Aye.
Commissioner McMullen.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner McCandless.
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts.
Aye.
And the chair also votes aye. Thank you. That recommendation will also go to the Utah County Commission. We're ready to move forward with item 3. This application is Farmland Reserve, Inc. It's a proposed Utah County Land Use Ordinance text amendment to sections 5-17-F, 5-17-1, and any other applicable section related to the inclusion of solar energy operations as a permitted conditional use in the Goshen Valley Planned Community PC Zone. Mr. Armstrong?
Bryce Armstrong with staff again. As stated, this is a proposal brought forth by Farmland Reserve as the applicant for a text amendment to our planned community zone. We'll bring that up a map here in a bit to show you our PC zone in the county, but I'll go ahead and just roll through the proposal. We lost some of our support staff for one break, and so I'll show you a map here in a second. Our PC zones, our plan, it's the Goshen Valley Planned Community Zone. It was adopted in 2009 as part of the Goshen Valley Specific Area Plan in anticipation of what the ordinance terms a holistic approach in long-range planning for a potential community in the Goshen Valley of Utah County. There was a driver at the time in 2009, and so this was adopted back then in anticipation of this PC zone being utilized. I believe you've got our map up now. You can see this is from our previous presentation, so I thought I'd just show you. The Goshen, or the PC zone is all of that blue area in the southwest corner of the county. The Goshen Valley area plan is much larger. It's about 60,000 plus acres of the Goshen Valley. The PC zone is probably 20,000 plus acres, if I can recall from 10 years ago. Basically, most of that, if not all of it, is under the current ownership of Farmland Reserve, an entity of the LDS Church, a lot of their agricultural holdings in the area. And so that just gives you a little context as to where it is. Thank you. And then I'll show you the text to the amendment here in a minute, but I'll just give you a little more information on the PC zone. So the PC zone is put into place to facilitate a kind of a layered approach of approving development that is very unlike what you normally see in the county, but acts as a seed for a future incorporated city. In this case, it would be in the Goshen Valley area. And so there are a number of different types of municipal type uses that would be allowed in this zone as it begins its ramp up to becoming its own city. And this would be anticipated to take place over years and years. The incorporation of it would hopefully happen as soon as it met certain thresholds to become a city, and then it would evolve as its own city. When this zone was created, it was anticipated that this was going to take out over a number of years, and we're into year 10 or 11, and it's still in the anticipation stage. There has been inquiries and potential development opportunities out there. But in the meantime, when this zone was created, it was anticipated to allow existing type of uses that are what's going on out there currently. They're consistent with the previous zoning designation, which was the agricultural 40 area. So most of them are agricultural type uses. Let's go ahead and bring up the proposal, and I'll kind of explain what this is specifically related to. So again, if you can scroll down to the next page, okay, right there. This is the current ordinance allows a number of existing uses, and if you look through the proposal, these type of uses include all areas or all uses that were consistent with the A40 zone prior, and then it identifies a number of other uses such as mines, gravel, topsoil, and then more recently, temporary motion picture studios were added. The idea was to allow these type of uses to be permitted in the anticipation of the rest of the PC zone developing. And so if you are familiar with the area, the LDS Church constructed a motion picture studio a number of years ago that is considered somewhat temporary, as it'll only exist until the PC zone develops, and that can be integrated into the PC zone or the use changed. And so with that kind of context, the current proposal contemplates adding an additional use to be allowed prior to the development process of the PC zone. And that use is designated by the applicant as solar energy collection and storage systems, and then their distribution operations and facilities associated with that. More specifically, the proposal is to designate only a certain area of the PC zone that this can occur in, and it's designated in the proposal as all real property located within the PC zone east of State Route 68 within Township 9 South, Range 1 West. And so, Greg, if you want to go back to that map real quick. I don't know if we're able to see, we're not going to be able to see the detail there. I apologize, I could have had a better map there, but as you can see from that map, there's this area is really just a little above that circle red area with that RR5 in the middle of that blue zone. This is about an area that would be approximately 36 square miles, if I'm reading this right. No, I'm sorry, Township 9 South, Range 1 West. And so I would have to take a look at the map. The applicant may be on, and they can kind of explain the size of this area, but I think there is a strategy to that for taxing implications. Really what we're getting at is the applicant would like to allow a potential solar farm in the PC zone as an existing use prior to the development of the PC zone in this certain specified area. And so that's what this is accomplishing. Let me go back to the proposal, and then I'll field some questions. So the proposal, as presented by the applicant, includes section 5-17F. We'll go up above to it, which identifies special requirements of the PC zone, and subsection 5 talks about certain types of uses that cannot be conducted outdoors, and then they have some exceptions, and then this would fall under that exception for the type of uses that would be appropriate. Subsection 7 refers to, again, no storage of or collection of certain things outdoors other than those specified. And so this is just to make sure that that matches up with this type of use. Go on the next page. And then again, subsection J is the area that addresses existing uses in the PC zone that currently exists. The red are the additions of this solar farm in the specified area. One thing I would note is if this would be recommended for approval, that at the end of the description of the area to be included, Township 9 South, Range 1S, we might want to reference the Salt Lake Basin Meridian as the reference point for that survey call out. One other thing is the proposal that you're looking at right now did not include a section that the applicant proposed. It was just left out because there were several versions of this. If you look at the screen before you, if you read there towards the end of, after the red edition, it says, I'll just start reading from, upon approval of a community structure plan, that community structure plan and accompanying development standards may specify under what terms agricultural, temporary film locations, and related uses, and it says mining uses, it's proposed to include, after mining uses, solar energy collection and storage systems and energy distribution operations and facilities. And then it continues the way it's worded. So staff forgot to add that to the red line version in front of you. So it's just referencing those uses again. So that was kind of all over the place, but see, there might be some questions. I believe the applicant may also be on the line, I'm not sure, so kind of give you some clarification on the needs of the proposal.
Okay, let's field some questions from the Planning Commission first. Mr. Armstrong, before we go to the applicant, are there questions for Mr. Armstrong regarding his presentation? Let's first start with those two that are present.
Yeah, I was just curious, the significance of this definition they put in of a subset within the PC, right? Limiting the solar facilities east of State Route 68 within Township 9 South, Range 1 West. What's the significance of that, and why just limiting to that area, I guess?
And I probably need to refer to the applicant on that, and we'll see if they're on board to answer that question.
Okay, so there's currently not a solar farm there, right?
No.
Okay.
No, and the PC zone does allow what we designate as an energy generation facility. We allow which a solar farm would fall under, but you have to go through all the layered process of the PC zone and make sure that you have to go through that process, which is anticipated as part of the build out and the development. This would allow it to exist prior to the development starting. And so while it's just sitting there, agricultural or gravel, you can see there's other uses that are, somewhat compatible that could exist prior to the development happening.
Okay.
So is that what you mean by a community structure plan? Is that part where you reach the phase where someone's ready to come in, development's ready to happen, and then you revisit these uses and determine whether or not they're compatible with the future plans?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, we've had a couple comments and questions from those present on the Planning Commission. How about those that are on the phone from the Planning Commission? Let's go ahead and start with Commissioner McMullen. Any comments or questions for Bryce?
No comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Miller?
No comment, thank you.
Commissioner McCandless?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Roberts?
Bryce, you mentioned you thought it was 36 square miles, so 23,000 acres is the size of this area?
No, I misspoke there. I was looking at what a township and range would be, but this is only a portion of that is on one side of the highway. So I'm not sure of the exact size that area is trying to describe. I'm hoping the applicant is on board that can help us. We'll try and
Okay,
get
and
that
then-
while we're looking here.
Okay. Commissioner
Okay, and then-
Roberts, second
Yeah,
question?
Yes, my next question is, I'm just curious as to why it's limited to solar. I'm assuming that's just because the way the applicant wanted it, but typically when we're talking about renewable energy, you want to make a space for wind power as well as solar.
That is correct. Our current reference in the ordinance is just a solar or electrical generation plant, which contemplates all types of renewable energy. Again, you're correct. This is what the applicant proposed. And so they
So
may,
an electrical generation plant would, a solar, or a wind farm would fit into an electrical generation plant?
yes, the way that we have currently worded in our ordinance, it could be under that umbrella of that definition.
Okay.
And that is allowed in the PC zone, but you have to go through this greater process.
Okay. No other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Let's hear from the applicant from Farmland Reserve, Inc. Are you on the line or present? Anybody, Peter, on the line that, one person on the line? While we're waiting for the applicant to either call in or show up, probably not show up at this point. I thought a section was 640 acres, and it appears to me that the description of this is east of Redwood Road, and I'm just assuming by the mapping, it's kind of hard to tell, but it's south of US 6, is that correct? Or north of US 6?
We're going to have a map here in a
Okay.
second.
Okay.
So let's go back to the description. Township 9 South, Range 1 West consists of 36 sections.
36 sections,
Yes,
so that's
where I got my
36 square miles. Okay.
But they define it as that area east of the highway and only in that zone. And so in this map you're looking at, the blue is the PC zone. We'll show the roads here. Yeah, sorry, in looking, each of those squares is 1 square mile. And so in looking at it, you're looking at probably 4 to 5 potential square miles that this area is trying to define that's in the PC zone. Apologize, we tried to arrange for the applicant to participate, but must have had a disconnect there, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious, why not apply it to the entire PC zone?
That was staff's first question and recommendation. Again, I hate to speak for the applicant, but it related to some tax implications of their tax exempt status. There may be some holdings of a different entity in different areas of the zone. I don't know enough detail, but that was the reason why it was specific to a certain area, and it could have been related to the entities, the way they have their property owned, and the tax implications.
It just seems weird where none of the other existing uses have that kind of a restriction or exclusion, right?
Yeah. Again, and we'll make sure the applicant is at the county commission meeting to help answer these questions. You can continue this if you'd like to get some additional information.
I appreciate the mapping that was brought up, showing, basically the southwest part of Utah Lake there, east of Redwood Road, but north of US 6. And most of the part, I forgot what they call that creek that feeds into Utah Lake on the south end, but it's mostly mostly west of that. So I appreciate the description. It provides a little context on that map.
One other item is the applicant is working with a subcontractor, I believe, and there may be some strategy related to this location for their desired solar farm, but that, I guess, could still be accomplished by allowing it anywhere, and that was our point, but they had their reasons, so.
Well, that large of area, we're talking several thousand acres now.
Yes.
So, okay. Again, let's defer one more second to see if the applicant is on the phone or not. Doesn't appear to be the case. This is also a public hearing, and the public hearing remains open. So we are going to invite first those in attendance that would like to speak to item 3 regarding the proposed text amendment to allow for solar energy operations as a permitted conditional use in the Goshen Valley Planned Community Zone. Peggy? Okay, so there is no one present. Let's go ahead and see if anybody is on the line. I will read the number one more time for the public. It is 385-323-8760. If you'd like to call in and speak to this text amendment, please feel free to do so. We'd be happy to receive any public comment on this item. We'll give it a few seconds here. In the meantime, Mr. Armstrong, I did have a quick question, and that related to, see if I can turn to my notes real quick. You said that if there is a motion, did we want to modify the text to include the Salt Lake Basin Meridian within Township 9 South and Range 1 West? Is that how to phrase that correctly?
Yes, I think that would be appropriate.
Were there any other modifications to
Yes, the wording I read in at that spot that I designated, further down in under subsection J, yes, it was just, yeah, you can just say how, as indicated on the record.
As indicated on the record, okay. Thank you.
The other thing I would add is staff didn't really have any concerns with this. It seems to be compatible with, there's a lot of mining and grazing areas that are surrounding this area, which do allow electric power generation plants. And so as you're talking about existing uses and prior to development of the PC zone, and even integrated as part of the development, this would appear to be appropriate in this area, so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Peter, were there any call-ins?
I see one.
There is one on the phone.
Okay, great. We would love to hear from you. If you could please state your name and city or residence.
My name is Brian Harris. I work for a company named Long Road Energy. I actually live in Beaver, Utah. We're a renewable energy company. We have actually leased this property from Farmland Reserve, so we have been working with Farmland for quite a while on this project. So I would like to speak in favor of this amendment. This is a great area for a solar project. It has a great solar resource. The topography of the land is fitting for a project, and there's some transmission resources in the area. And so I'd just like to voice my support for this amendment so that we can move forward with this project. And I'd be glad to open or to answer any questions about the project if any of the Planning Commission members have any questions.
Thank you for that comment. Planning commissioners, do we have any questions for the public speaking right now?
This is Jackie Miller. I'm wondering if we have defined what the overall acreage is.
Okay, so overall acreage, approximate acreage within those several sections and underneath that legal or that description of Salt Lake of Meridian Basin.
Hey Brian, this is Bryce from staff. I don't know if you heard earlier, but there were a couple questions related to number one, why the specific area that was defined in the proposal, and then maybe how many acres in the PC zone that would represent. I don't know if you have that information or not.
I don't have the exact information. I was listening to the discussion, and Bryce, you described it as well as I can. I do know that our lease is for approximately 2,500 acres.
And so that would be the size of this solar project. I believe the reference in the amendment is slightly larger than that. I think you're right. It's probably in the 3,500 to 4,000 acres. And I don't have a really good understanding of why it wasn't the entire area, but there was a discussion about the tax implications and the nonprofit status, and that's beyond my understanding. But that was part of the reasoning, that it was limited to a smaller geographic area than the entire zone.
Thank you, Brian. Commissioner Miller, did you have any follow-up question on that?
No, thank you so much for that.
So it sounds like 2,500 acres. I was doing some quick calculations, looked just about under 4,000 possible acres, 3,800 plus. So 2,500 of it is under this particular proposal that we'll see, even though this is a little larger area.
And just for clarification, if this recommendation is to be approved and this is allowed as an existing use, is proposed to still be a conditional use, and the applicant would have to move forward with a Board of Adjustment for a conditional use for this use.
And Mr. Armstrong, that leads back to you triggered a question that I forgot to ask you earlier. What types of conditions likely might be placed upon a use in this regard?
So it's kind of a general conditional use, and so we have to limit it to the conditions that are specified in the ordinance for a conditional use. We've had a similar request go through the Board of Adjustment and receive approval. They have not commenced construction yet. It was about a year ago, a little further to the north and east of this, I believe, if I recall. But certain conditions included a plan of operation, a decommission plan, potential plan to remove or bond for the facilities that in the event that it is no longer used as a solar farm, fencing, security, those type of issues. I'm trying to reach and to remember what that specific conditional use had, but I would imagine it would be similar to that.
Thank you. So it's more specific than just the health, safety, and welfare type
Yes,
conditions.
It talks about route restrictions, travel, non-reflective material, site, those type of things.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Let's see if we have anybody else that has called in. Peter, has anybody else called in? Okay. With that, I would like, since we could close the public hearing at this point in time and bring it back to the Planning Commission, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Because we won't be having any more comment from the public tonight. So if we could get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Mr. Thatcher moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Ellingson. We'll do a roll call vote on this. Mr. Thatcher?
Aye.
Commissioner Ellingson?
Aye.
Commissioner McMullen?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner McCandless?
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts?
Aye.
And Commissioner Kiesler is yes, so that is, public hearing is now closed. Deliberation, comments, questions from the Planning Commission? I will just say I kind of like that it's a little more confined and not in the entire PC zone at this point. I think it makes some sense. It obviously makes sense to the applicant. I actually think it makes sense from a land use perspective rather than open it up to the entire PC zone. There's a certain description, so to speak, for this particular use. That's the only comment I really had. Any others? Well, how about we entertain a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion. as long as I don't lose my voice first. I move that we recommend approval to the Utah County Commission of the proposed Utah County Land Use Ordinance text amendment to sections 5-17-F and section 5-17-J related to the inclusion of solar energy operations as a permitted conditional use in the Goshen Valley Planned Community or PC zone based on the findings in the report and as amended in the record.
Okay. Do we have a second?
This is Karen. I second that.
Thank you, Commissioner McCandless. We will now do a roll call vote. We'll start off with Commissioner Thatcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellingson,
Aye.
Commissioner McMullen,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner McCandless,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you so much for those three items. Our meeting is not over yet, though. We have other business that staff needs to bring up to the Planning Commission, and so we'll go to the other business, item 1, and that is training and discussion on the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act. How appropriate.
We are going to push that out probably till June at least, just the nature of our arrangement. And this was something that was continued before this circumstance happened. So we'll push that one out for another month.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Let's go to item 2, adopt a resolution governing the use of electronic meetings for the Utah County Planning Commission.
This is something we probably could have moved up to the beginning of this meeting. I'll let Mr. Moore explain that. Kind of unique to our circumstances currently, but is a useful tool in the event that we need to utilize this format in the future.
Yes, Robert Moore, Utah County Attorney's Office. So what's before you in your packet is a resolution to essentially adopt an electronic meetings policy. Typically, in order to have an electronic meeting, you have to have a policy in place prior to scheduling that meeting. However, as part of the emergency declaration of the Utah State Governor, he essentially allowed you to have electronic meetings if you do not have a policy in place. So we decided to go ahead and address this with all our boards. This is the exact policy that's being used by the County Commission. In the past, we've had a policy with the County Commission which required a member to be at an anchor location. The statute does not require that, so we took that out, and so this is the current version that the Commission adopted, I think, about 2 weeks ago. And so it's on your agenda today for adoption. It would allow you to have electronic meetings, meaning that planning commissioners could call in instead of be here on site. Obviously, it's preferable to be here on site, but in given situations like now, or if you're traveling or some other reasons why you can't be here, this would allow you to have that opportunity. It does require us to notice the meeting as an electronic meeting, which typically we would do that anyway going forward. We'll just notice them all as electronic meetings. That way, it gives some flexibility to planning commissioners, depending upon schedules or last-minute things that might come up, to make sure we have a quorum present or a quorum available for the meeting. So if you have any questions, I mean, this is pretty much just straight from the statute, so it's not, but we have to adopt a policy in order to have meetings going forward, and that's really all we're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Moore, for that explanation. Questions or comments from the Planning Commission to Mr. Moore?
How does it affect the public's ability to participate electronically versus what you were just talking about as our ability to participate electronically?
Well, under normal circumstances, like we used to have, the public could still come here and participate. It would be just you folks that would be able to participate electronically. However, given our current circumstances, both you folks and also the public are participating electronically. And we've adjusted for that. We have a phone number for them to call in. We do the same thing with our county commission meeting. We've actually put this on YouTube. I think this is our first meeting on YouTube from Planning Commission. So we've trying to deal with the current version of the world, if you will. And that's not only our planning commission that's had to deal with that, our county commission, other boards throughout Utah and throughout the United States. I mean, this is happening all over, so. But this policy would only really addresses you guys. That's what the statute deals with. It doesn't necessarily address somebody else, but if somebody can't be to a meeting, they could call in. They could contact Susan and make a phone call in.
So if we
There is a possibility of
notice a future meeting as electronic, the public then has the right to call in
The
and
public
be
could
heard
call in if they needed to, yes.
in a public hearing.
Yeah, but typically this is just for the planning commission members. But again, the world's kind of changed a little bit. So at least in the current circumstances, that's why we're making this available to the public to call in. But normally the public would be sitting right here and addressing this with you tonight.
Well, but now that these are published on YouTube, these are probably going to become very attractive and exciting meetings to attend by the public, I'm sure.
Yes, I was shocked you had 10 members watching, and the county commission usually doesn't get 10, so you're doing better than the county commission. Anyway.
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher and Mr. Moore. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Moore regarding our resolution from the Planning Commission?
So, and just to clarify, it looks like this policy allows us to use whatever platform or means that we want or find necessary, just as long as we're noticing and streaming appropriately.
As long as it's noticed up in advance and you have the ability to do that. Phone calls would be the normal way, but things change as far as electronics and other things. Maybe we have an ability to do it through computers or other ways of streaming like we have now. But yes, it does allow for any resource available to patch you in electronically.
Okay. Any other discussion from the Planning Commission?
This is meant to be a benefit. This is meant to be a benefit to the planning commissioners and to allow us to continue to have meetings, which is also a benefit to the applicants and to those who want to be heard and to the public that they can continue to have business as usual.
Correct. I feel this is a positive thing. We need the flexibility for the Planning Commission, but also for the public. I see this as a win-win just with the current situation we're in. Hopefully this is not a permanent situation we're in, but certainly something that we need to conduct the business of the county. And we need to move forward and include the public and those who have been appointed to the Planning Commission. So with that, if there's no other discussion, we do have to do a motion on this. It is a resolution. We will second the motion and then vote on it as well. So at this point, if there are no further discussion, Chair would entertain a motion. We're looking to those planning commissioners that are on the phone. Don't be shy.
This is Karen.
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Commissioner McCandless.
I move that we, let me bring it up, make sure I'm reading the right stuff here. Where is it? I move that we adopt the resolution enacting written procedures governing electronic meetings.
Is there a second?
This is Robert, I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner McMullen. We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Grab my cheat sheet here. Commissioner Thatcher?
Aye.
Commissioner Ellingson?
Aye.
Commissioner McMullen?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner McCandless?
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts?
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. Thank you. We appreciate all the participation of the Planning Commission and especially staff and those that work here at Utah County for going the extra mile to make this available on YouTube and to the public. We appreciate your efforts. We know it's not easy, but it's something that we need to continue to perfect and promote and welcome, and we certainly do that. With that, we have no other items on the agenda. If there's any other business, Is there any other business, Mr. Armstrong?
Nope, just appreciate your patience and working with us today.
Okay, could we get a motion to adjourn?
So
I'm
moved.
looking to those that are on the phone.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, I think it was, who was that? Commissioner Miller, and then second was who?
No,
McMillan?
well, I mean,
Okay, we're gonna go with that.
It was the other Karen.
This is Karen. I moved unless Commissioner Miller also moved at the same time.
Okay, so we'll go with Commissioner McCandless as the move. We'll go with Commissioner Miller as the second. This is the last vote of the night, I promise. So Commissioner Thatcher,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellingson,
Aye.
Commissioner McMullen,
aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner McCandless,
Good job, Vern. Aye.
Commissioner Roberts.
Nay. Somebody's got to vote nay today.
Would you like to reconsider? And I'm an aye. Thank you so much for your attendance.
Good night,
Commissioner is
everyone.
adjourned.
Good night.
Good job.